Persona 3 Reload, people. It's out, it's here, and I can't wait to dive into it myself, but a question has been forming in the back of my mind in recent weeks. If Persona 3 is getting this treatment, well, what about Persona 4? And I made a video back in August, but we got a lot of information about what Reload has entailed, and now the game's just out. So let's take the new information at our disposal, and let's talk about Persona 4 Reload, which could get a little tricky to remember, so let's call this theoretical version of Persona 4 Shining Golden Atlas. At me up if you need some help with the naming conventions, yeah? I got you covered. So what would Persona 4 Shining Golden entail? Well, I think Reload is enticing for me because it really takes a good hard look at the formula and the pacing of P3 and asks itself, how can we improve this? You see, Persona 3 is a major landmark in the franchise. It's where a lot of these social simulator aspects that we have come to know and or love were really introduced into the franchise and gave Persona its true identity that we all know it for. But for a first iteration and essentially a first draft, Persona 3 is, well, kind of spotty here and there. It's a good, honest first bash, but I think P4 and P5 tend to get the pacing of it better. Now, why is this? Well, in Persona 3, at least the version that I played portable, most of the members of Seized didn't really have their storyline until after summer, and some near the end of the game. And most of those social links didn't unlock until, like, that second half of the game, which left the first half just you kind of going around doing random people's social links, which were fine. I think Persona 3 has some of the best and worst social links in the franchise, but on the whole, I am far more receptive to the style that they did for Persona 4 and Persona 5, where it's a far more even flow of introducing these social links throughout the game, from beginning to middle to end. I think that's an overall good pace and an excellent way to develop and flesh out the main cast of characters and to slowly integrate them into the fold of the main party. Well, what is Reload doing for this for P3? Well, they're introducing a whole bunch of new scenarios and little storylines that can happen for the members of Seized throughout the game. And ideally, right, that's going to add a lot more flavor and character and possibly development, or at least context, earlier in the game, and adding more individuality and personality and developing these interpersonal relationships earlier in the game to really get the ball rolling. So that when we have a lot of the development later on, we'll care even more about it because we'll have all this fresh new development already. Or just these character moments to really stand out and shine early in the game. I think that's going to be way more up my alley personally. Now that's one major half of why I'm looking forward to Reload so much, but that doesn't really apply for Golden because as I said, they went from being kind of rough on their first draft to putting out a masterpiece in terms of the pacing for the social links in P4. I hold the cast of Persona 4 in extremely high regard. It is one of my favorite casts in all of gaming, and Persona 4 Golden is one of my favorite games of all time. It is in my top 10 games of all time. I love it so much, I hold it really dear, and a major reason for that is the cast of characters and the social links, and how they're paced throughout the game. They have an amazing, excellent tempo and rhythm, where you're introduced to these characters in the main storyline, you go through their dungeon, find out a major part of their hidden personal deep-rooted secrets, they come to terms with that, develop as characters, and then after that you unlock their social link where you see the result of that development. And you see them even gain some more development as well on top of that. And then throughout the game, you see them being integrated into the fold of the main party, have all of these funny comical moments and scenarios, or even heartwarming scenes with everyone, and every character fits like a glove. I wouldn't really change that. Now, there's a few scenes you could possibly lift from the anime Persona 4 to the games, like with the beef bowl shop delivery girl, you could add her to the game. You could also add that one episode of P4, the anime, where it's like Nanako and Summer just following Yu Narukami around trying to figure out what the hell he's doing. So eventually it's just the main crew, like, shadow following Yu Narukami around as he's just doing all the social links. And like the way you could easily integrate that into the game is you just do your regular social links, and then in the background you see just Nanako for a few of them, and then over time you see more and more just of your crew like tailing you from behind or from far away, and it all like culminates in a maybe a little funnier scene near the end of summer or in midsummer. Just something like that. Like, you don't need to do a lot of it here. Because again, like I said, I think the pacing in terms of these events and the actual events themselves in P4 is one of Golden's strong points that I wouldn't really alter or touch all that much. It's brilliant pacing in my opinion. But where I think P4 could really shine from having a shining Golden, for example, alongside, say, something like Reload, would be in terms of the gameplay. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at Tartarus for Persona 3. Tartarus, for a while now, has been extremely polarizing, and in my opinion, I tend to lean towards the more pessimistic angle here. I think Tartarus is a little bit too long or repetitive on the whole. Again, I am talking about the version that I played in Portable. A lot of the floors just feel really copy-paste or similar to one another, and there's not enough uniqueness or diversity going on there to really mix things up. And when you tack on the Elizabeth requests as well, it just multiplicatively multiplies how long you are spending in this extremely repetitive piece of content. They try their best every now and then to mix things up with different events that can happen on each of these floors, but I don't think they do enough to really make it fun and rewarding. But I definitely think there's a seed here that can be expanded on, and I hear that the Tartarus in Persona 3 Reload is pretty fun, and I can't wait to dive into that. But that's, again, the main point of why I'm looking forward to Reload. It's taking one of these aspects of Persona 3 that I wasn't all that pleased about, and just trying to make it better, by adding on to it, giving it more personality, leading into the visuals, putting more mechanics and more things to do inside Tartarus. How can that be applied to Persona 4? Well, I think the weakest part now of Persona 4 for me is the actual dungeon design, because they really just kind of boil down to feeling like Tartarus, but with less random events. Sure, they are their own separate little dungeons with their own unique aesthetics, but mechanically speaking, they all kind of boil down to just a bunch of corridors. There's a few puzzles every now and then, but they're very few and far between for my tastes. I think Heaven is the massive standout for me just because of the song and the theme going on there. That's great. But again, I would like some non-linearity, and I think Persona 4's dungeons could really use an overhaul on the whole, in my opinion. Maybe not along this, the ideas of, say, Tartarus or Mementos, but more alongside the palaces of P5. Give them, like, these little playgrounds, these little scenarios of unique events that add individuality and personality to these dungeons. I think if anything of P4 Golden could use a facelift or a complete overhaul, it is the dungeon design, but that is just my personal opinion. But really, there's not much else that I would change. Okay, maybe I would change the drop rates for some of those side quests, and also just make them so you can find out on the minimap when a new side quest is available, and then you can go explore to go find it in the relevant region, right? Like, maybe that. But outside of revamping the dungeons, there's not much that I would change. I love the boss fights in P4, I love the story, I love the plot, I love the characters, the social links are mostly really good, things to do are fun and interesting. I like collecting all, like, the Gundams you can collect, like the Gunpla that you can make and collect. That's really cool. The books as well, riding around on your motorcycle. There's a good amount of interesting little events that happen throughout the game with your party to develop them and add personality to the game and to flesh out those cast of characters. A good range of emotions. Outside of maybe taking a few scenes from the anime that weren't in the game and just putting them in the game. Or, like I said, add the Beef Bowl girl. Like, that's really it. I think the main thing Shining Golden could really benefit from would be a revamp to the dungeon design specifically. I wouldn't replace pretty much anything else outside of, a graphical overhaul, but maybe you could be additive here, like add more events, more things to do, stuff along those lines, right? Now, I don't think Persona 4 needs, like, a reload version as much as P3 did, but there are two more games that I think could use a lot of love here, and that's Persona 1 and Persona 2. I'm a big Persona fan, but I haven't had access to Persona 1 or 2, and I would like to play both of those games, but Persona 1, from the looks of it, has aged to a way that wouldn't be all that enjoyable to me. I think Persona 1 could use a massive, facelift, and I would just love to see the story of Persona 2. I think Atlus has been hesitant in doing anything with these two titles, mainly because, well, they don't have the social simulator aspects, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, that was added with 3. And that's a core part of the identity for Persona that a lot of modern fans have. So releasing these games that don't have these aspects could be off-putting to a lot of the new core fanbase. And when I view it from that lens, I can understand Atlus's reluctance. But I also think that there would be a decent amount of people, depending upon how much work you want to put in, that would be receptive to Persona 1 and 2 in some degree or fashion. I'm big on game preservation myself. I would like to see the original versions ported, and I would like to see a remaster or even a remake if it's needed. And considering that we're going to get the Answers DLC for Persona 3, at least that's been reported, Persona 3, 4, and 5 are largely in good spots right now. Personally, the thing I want to see the most is Persona 6. I want to see something new. But I would also like to see something done to Persona 1 and 2. No, I don't think just because P2 has Hitler in it, I'm not joking about that. I don't think that's the reason they haven't done anything, because they could have done something with P1, but they haven't. I think it's the lack of the social simulator aspects and how old these games are. And maybe they crunched the numbers in the back end and predicted that it's just not going to be worth it. Maybe they did that analysis. All I can say personally is that I would like to see something done with P1 and P2. I would like to be able to play those games on my PC, because I want to see where Persona started.
Technically it's a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei.
I know. I want to see, though, where Persona as a series started with P1 and P2. And whether that comes in the form of ports, remasters, or remakes, I think there's something that could be done there. So yeah, if I'm going to go in order of my preferences here, I would like to see Persona 6 first and foremost. I would then like to see something done to P1 and P2. But also, I love Persona 4, so I'm not going to be mad at seeing Persona 4 get some more love and get a graphical overhaul to bring it in line to, say, Reload or Royal. And if they touch up on the combat or the dungeon design, that's all gravy to me. I don't expect that to be likely. I think the big rumor going around is that the next steps for Persona is Persona 5 Arena and then Persona 6 or something along those lines. Don't quote me on that. But also that just makes a lot of sense to me as well. When you just think about it. But if at some point in the future we can see these things come out, I would like that. I really would. I want everything that I've talked about in this video so far today. I want to see it at some point in the future. I want to see Persona 6 most of all, but I would love to see a graphical overhaul for Persona 4 Golden with some revamped dungeons and maybe a few more scenarios, but I don't think it needs a full reload treatment of overhauling pretty much everything. I don't think it needs that, but I would be willing to go in with an open mind if they wanted to try that. And I think Persona 1 and 2 could absolutely do with getting another look at. Maybe they wouldn't sell as well as Reload will, or P5 let alone, or P4, but I think depending upon the budget they put into the game, it could still be worth it. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day. Leave a comment down below with what you want to see the most, and I assume most people will say Persona 6. So if you are going to, which would you prefer to see more? Persona 4 Reload, what I call Shining Golden, or something to be done for Persona 1 and Persona 2, and what would you like to see done for P1 and P2? Ports, remasters, or remakes? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can, and as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.